We're live?
We're live. Joey Pantaleo, welcome
sir.
to the Off Campus Podcast.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you for having me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Congrats on just getting engaged.
Thank you.
How does it feel?
Same thing. No difference. It was a really fun night, though. It was a good night. She was waiting for it. She had no idea. We successfully had, I think it was 60 people there.
Wow.
60 people. There was friends, families, everyone, and she had no idea. It was a 2-month in advance plan, so it's impressive. No one found out.
Did you know that you were going to engage her, ask her to marry you for a while?
Long time.
You knew for a while?
Yeah, long time.
How long
yeah.
have you guys been dating?
3 years. 3 years, almost to that date when I proposed, actually.
Cool.
Our anniversary is the 29th, and I did it the 22nd. I proposed the 22nd.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
What are you most excited for?
Most excited for, I think, just to get it done, like just get married and start a family. I think I'm sure if you listen to the last podcast we did, my big why is just family. Like I've always wanted a family at a young age. I had I don't want to say I had a tough upbringing, but like family wise, just separated, divorced parents. Siblings were kind of around everywhere. Didn't have a really good core of a family, and so just from a young age, I always knew that that's definitely what I wanted to create. And so when I met Courtney, I definitely knew that she was kind of that same feel. She came from a very tight cord family. And it was just very exciting because both of us were on kind of the same idea. We didn't want to do the mid-20s partying, running around. And when we found each other, it clicked. And I knew probably within the first 3 months.
Good for you. Yeah. I want that too. I want an early family.
The earlier the start, the earlier you can plan. The earlier you plan, the more money you're going to make, the more success. And it's not always about the money and the success, but like just being able to put your family in whatever means they need to be in. That's important to me. Like if my kid wants to go to college, I want to be able to pick any college he wants. If he wants to start a business or if he wants to start whatever he wants, I want to be able to support that and be like, hey, no problem whatsoever.
Yeah. I always thought it's pretty cool when people get married young and have kids, but especially getting married young, you kind of grow up with your partner.
Yes.
And that's going to be much more bonding than meeting at 32, 33, and you're already grown up, established in this world, and you just kind of meet.
Exactly. Like even the person I met, so I met Courtney, I'm trying to do math out if I'm turning 25, and I met her when I was 21, 22-ish, somewhere around there. And the person I am now to what I was then is still night and day difference.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. I agree with that. I also think you end up you go through more difficulties with that as well because you're growing into a new person, you're changing into a new person, and you kind of have to accommodate them changing into a new person. So it's you're continuing to grow yourself, they're continuing to grow themselves, and you're growing your relationship at the same time. Where, like you said, if you're meeting someone at 35, it's more so, hey, what were your past experiences and
exactly.
and everything like, not that there's anything wrong with that by any means, but for me, that's what's attractive to me about that is like you're growing, you're going through hard times, and that's making you stronger and making relationships stronger, and hopefully would make, me a better father and her a better mother.
Jordan Peterson has this idea that there's like 3 parts to your life. It's your job, your career, your relationship, or your main relationship, so like your parents and your significant other, and your kids. Yeah. So if you don't have kids, you're kind of missing like a third of your life. You better have a very, very good career or a very good relationship because you're missing part of that. I agree. What do you think about the people who don't want to have kids now? Because I think we're below replacement rates now.
Yeah, it's growing. It's growing. The people who don't want to have kids is definitely growing. I would sit down and I would argue them to the death of me of why they wouldn't want a kid. I will never understand that. I think it's, again, this might come across aggressive. I think it's a bit selfish to be like, oh, well, I don't want the responsibility. I don't want, all that on my plate. I want to enjoy my life. And whether you were brought up in a very tough upbringing or you were on a very steady, easy upbringing and you just want to keep it that way, I think it's complacency at its finest. And comfort is the easiest way to live a terrible life. Mm-hmm. And if having kids is scary to you or too much responsibility for you, one, if people our age, I think they'll grow out of it. I tell everyone if, I don't want a kid and they're mid-20s, I'm like, you will. You eventually will. But if you're 30s or even 40s and you're like, yeah, I don't want a kid, I will never understand where that comes from. No matter what you say, no matter what past experiences you have. For me, it would be really easy for me with my, alcoholic dad who passed away, broken kind of family pieces. It'd be super easy for me to look at that and say, hey, families can turn out really bad. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the forefront of a bad family. So I'm just not going to have one. What good does that do? What learning experience did that teach me if I don't go through it myself and try to fix what I didn't have early on in life? So to put it in a nutshell, I think it's a little selfish, and I think a lot of people will eventually grow out of it. I think you hear a lot of people say like having their kid was the best decision, or even if it wasn't a decision and it happened accidentally, it was the best thing that ever happened to them.
Yeah, kids are such a responsibility. It like kind of forces you to become better.
Exactly, 100%.
How many kids do you want?
I think we're shooting for like 4 or 5.
It's a good amount.
Yeah.
I'm probably around there too. I might be 3 to 4. But
yeah. I mean, you'll see. I think that's a TBD type of thing. But I definitely want a big family. I think that's the goal. Is definitely have a big family. Mm-hmm. Courtney came from my fiance. She has 5 siblings, or she's one of 5. Her mom is one of 13, and her dad is one of 5 as well. So they're coming from big families, and that was super like welcoming to me, and I love that because she definitely wants to like continue that too.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're in real estate sales.
Yes, sir.
Where do you think, actually this is a big thing that I think this is a topic that you like to discuss.
Yeah.
Why do you think people don't think it's appropriate to talk about money?
It's a great question. I think it's an old way of being inappropriate, asking someone how much money they make, or, I'm not going to go up to someone on the side of the street and be like, hey man, how much money do you make? But like, I think it can be very reasonable to say, hey, like, what do you do for a job? You say, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Oh, that's really cool. Like I think it's very normal to like, if I talk to you and I said, hey, like, what do you do? And you say, oh, I work at Joe's Bikes and I do this and I do that. And I sell motorcycles. I flip them. I do this. I'd be very curious. I'd be like, oh, really? Like, how well do you do? Or not how well do you do, but how do you enjoy it? And then it kind of flows in the conversation of it. And I think, the older generations, they have an issue of, for whatever reason, there wasn't a lot of 1099s back in the day. So you didn't have room to grow. And if you don't have room to grow and you're at a salary job, I can understand, like, that's where you're at, And so to ask is, there's a ceiling to a point where if you're a 1099 or you're starting a business or you're in real estate sales, you're a loan officer, you're doing something where there is no ceiling, I think it's very appropriate for those people to talk about that. Because if I make whatever, I'm just throwing out a number, if I make $200,000 a year, but I talk to another real estate agent, he goes, oh yeah, I make $700,000 a year. I'd be like, oh my God, like, how are you doing that? Like, let's talk. And I'd want to start, building a relationship with him to get information or trade information and create a relationship. But if I didn't ask how much money he made, I wouldn't know how valuable he could be to me, And so that's, I think it's an old way. And I think people are either 1, insecure about where they're currently at, or 2, they're in a place where they're walled off. They have a ceiling and they feel like they don't want to talk about it because that's the spot they're in and they can't really grow out of it.
I think it's such an observable metric for someone's value. It's so easy to just hear what someone makes, and that's what they're worth.
Yes. Yeah.
And so people just are afraid to talk about it just in case you're a little bit higher than them on that scale.
Exactly. So and I would so disagree on like the using that as a metric of like how good this person is.
Yeah.
Right. Like I would so much rather make $75,000 a year, be a good person, be a confident person, love my family, have a great family, than a guy who's making $500,000 a year who's just a terrible father or whatever it may be.
No peace of mind.
If all you care about is how much money they make, right? You'd look at the guy making 500,000 and you'd be like, dude, that guy's way better than you. And it's like, that's so false, And so maybe that's another reason why is people hold money way too high in their values of how they perceive themselves, right? Like if I don't make $500,000 a year, I'm nothing. Maybe that's how people view it. And so when they talk about money, when they say, well, I'm only making a $50,000 salary, they feel they're not a valuable person. But there's so many other, facets in life that you can be way, way more valuable than what you make.
Yeah. Observable metrics versus hidden metrics. So money is the main observable metric.
Yep.
But hidden ones are like peace of mind, your relationships. You can't put a number on those. So your quality of life is determined on all of these things.
Exactly.
But you can only see the money.
Exactly.
So people overvalue that, and they're willing to sacrifice their relationships, their peace of mind for more money.
Exactly. Yeah.
When in reality, they're not living a better life at all.
No, exactly. And that's a good point you bring up, because usually your quality of life goes down as you make more money. That's something
because you're forced to work more and work harder.
If you're making more money, you're probably working harder, working more hours. And if you're working more hours, you're probably spending less time with your family and not, giving them the love that they need. Not saying that you can't work 80 hours and still be a fantastic dad and fantastic husband and everything like that. But it's the averages, right? We're talking about the averages. If the average person works 80 hours a week, I would probably say 75% of those people are probably going to be not great family members.
They never see their family.
Exactly.
That's why jealousy is a stupid emotion. This is a Naval Ravikant idea. He was on Joe Rogan once. I don't know where he came up from, but he is a genius. And he was talking about how whenever he feels jealousy of someone, he kind of just realizes, okay, well, if I want his money or his power or whatever, you have to wholesale 100% take on their entire life.
Exactly.
So with Tiger Woods, his childhood, he was beaten by his dad and bullied, and it's like you wouldn't trade the money that he has for the peace of mind that he doesn't have, for the childhood that he had. You wouldn't trade that. And most people, if they were given that opportunity to switch lives with all these celebrities, they wouldn't do it. Most people, every time I think of anyone and I feel jealous at all, I try and do that.
I agree.
And I realized I'm pretty happy with my life.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more with that. And I think that's a huge, huge thing. I grew out of that, definitely. But at a younger age, it's really hard with, growing up with social media, growing up with all this stuff, you're seeing everything. It's really hard when you are a teenager, when you're, whatever it is, sub 25, I'd even say. You're looking at all these people doing this, doing that. They're in Greece, they're in Italy, they're doing this, and they have all this money or whatever. Jealousy is a huge, huge thing. And I think subconsciously I've kind of adopted that mindset where it's like, I never look at someone and say, wow, I'm jealous of you. I might look at someone and say, wow, you are way more ahead of me. Like, I wonder what I could learn from you and to build myself up to that level. But I don't think I'd ever look at someone and say, envy them truly from where they are compared to where I am. And that's an interesting conversation, because I don't know how you consciously do that. Maybe it's that, right?
Just remind yourself.
If you feel that jealousy, you sit down and you say, okay, why do you think I'm jealous, right? Like, you start to internalize your feelings and think to yourself, okay, well, what did they go through that I haven't gone through? Would I even trade that right now? So that's it's definitely a good point.
Envy is the only one of the 7 deadly sins that doesn't feel good. So there's really no reason to
It's a good point.
feel it. If you can control it. Sometimes it's very difficult.
It is
very difficult.
It is, and that's why I say subconsciously, or consciously, it's really hard to. Sometimes it just has to happen over time. You have to get sick of feeling that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened to me is I would look at these people and I'd be like, I want to be better than you. I want to make more money than you. Very toxic type of mindset in your mind. And for whatever reason, I must have just gotten sick of it. And I must have just grown out of that mindset and started looking at people and saying, wow, how did you get to that point? I wonder what kind of values I could add that you have into my life to make me up to that point.
I'm lucky where I have a mind that enjoys learning and enjoys podcasts that talk about this stuff. So I'm able to learn about this. but most people don't know it.
No.
When did you realize that you wanted to be wealthy?
I think from a young age. I think everyone does to a little bit of a degree. And maybe I'm wrong with that, but I think that was just an innate feeling, whether it's like an entrepreneurial mind, and I'm not saying I'm like an entrepreneur, but like that type of mindset where it's like you just want to build things, or you want to, have money or be able to kind of go whichever route you want. I think for me, freedom of time and freedom of decision are the biggest things for me. In order to do that, money is the biggest variable, I would say.
Money is other people's time.
Yes.
So
yeah,
if you have a bunch of money, you can save a lot of your time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of people, when they're young, they do want to be wealthy, but they kind of grow out of it very quickly.
I agree.
And I don't really know if that's true because I've always wanted to be wealthy. So I'm like you. So I don't know.
That is, yeah, it's interesting. It's, I think, I agree. I think a lot of people at a young age have that. They're like, oh, I want to do that. I want to innately, right? Like, even if you take it way back to the old days, right? I would imagine every young kid in a village would want to be the leader of the village. It's just that's why wouldn't you want to be? That's just like and I'm going to talk from a man's point of view, but from a man's point of view, you just want to be a strong leader, right? And like, that's whatever it may be, right? Whether you're in a village back in the 1800s and you're like, I want to be the leader of this tribe, or now when it says, I want to be the leader of my family and I want to be able to give them any life they want. And I want to be able to, influence everyone who comes in touch with me in the best way possible. So, yeah.
Why do you think it's important to have money?
I think it's important to have money. Well, I guess we could probably talk about a whole podcast why it's important to have money. I think it's important to have money because in order to give your family the life that they want, I think that for me is the most important, right? But even for that, like I don't think, I know a lot of people didn't grow up with a ton of money who still, they were able to do things that they want. So that's not always the case. But, if you're like me and you want to delegate a lot of your work and be able to have freedom of decision and freedom of time, you need money to delegate that stuff to, right? Like if there's a showing, I have $1 million showing up in Mount Washington, I don't want to drive up there, right? But I can delegate that work. I have, that's going to sound a little cocky, but I have money. I can Venmo someone $150 to go do that showing for me, right? If I might do that if I have nothing on my plate that day. But if I have 3 other showings that I need to attend to down here, I'd rather not drive two hours there and 2 hours back. I can delegate that work. And that's just from my point of view. But you can take that into any field, into any industry and save time.
I've never struggled with greed. I was actually talking to my dad about this. Sounds weird to start off with that, but
no,
I never really have. And I don't know. I'm not going to say I try to be generous.
Yeah.
But the main reason I want to be rich when I'm older is basically because of freedom of time.
Yeah.
And for my family. So it's not completely selfish. But
Yes.
I think it is even though I'm not like greedy with my money, I still want money for a selfish reason.
100%.
And I think part of that's because I'm young. Like I want a cool sports car and
Exactly.
But me and Johnny talk about this a lot. So our parents' generation, they grew up, they worked very hard to get money. I don't know exactly how you grew up, but let's say the average Gen Zer.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're not Gen Z, are you?
I don't even know what I would fall under.
Anyway, their parents grew up, worked hard to give their kids everything that they wanted.
Yeah.
But then when it came time to give their kids that, they kind of realized that if I give them that, they're not going to grow up to be good people.
That's a mental fight I have in my head.
So how are you going to balance that?
I think it's... Do you follow Patrick Bet-David at all?
Yeah, well, I know him. I listen to him a little bit, yeah.
So I think, and I wish I had the answer to this because I don't. And it's something that would actually keep me up at night a lot because if I do want to have whatever, 10 million in the bank and give my kids the life they want, and I've seen it all over the place. I have friends that were, spoiled like crazy, like absolutely spoiled, who are some of the hardest working people ever that I've ever seen. and I have friends that weren't spoiled who are very lazy, right? But again, if you're talking about the averages of people, yes, if you get spoiled, you're probably not going to be a super hard worker. So it's tough, but like I've always been super intrigued. Patrick Bet-David always talks about like the currency in his house is reading. Like how many pages have you read? And he's like, if they have certain guidelines, like super like rule book, like super by the rules. So if it's like, okay, well, if you read 100 pages this week, you can do whatever you want. You can go over to your friend's house. You can do this. You can do that. And if you've read 50, then okay, well, you might only get this. You might only get that. If you've read none, then you're not really going to be able to do anything. So I think you have to have, even if you have money and you're spoiling your kids with everything, I think it's the values that you as a father or you as a mother teach your kids, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, right? Like if someone has great values and your 5-year-old son sees the way you talk to someone or sees you holding a door open for someone, or, even if you're a father or a mother and you just correct certain little things that your kid might do that doesn't add up, right? If a kid just is running around like crazy and throwing stuff, sit them down and teach them whatever you want to teach, saying, hey, like, in this family, we don't do that, or whatever it may be. But I think there are many different ways around, if you have a lot of money, not quote unquote spoiling your kids. But even if you do spoil your kids, get your 16-year-old kid a crazy sports car or something because that's what he loves, whatever it is. I think there's definitely other ways you can instill them with good values where that's not gonna deter their future and their value that they'll bring.
It's very difficult.
It's a super, that literally keeps me up at night thinking about that type of stuff because it's just weird. It's like, how are you going to do that? It's almost, you almost just how to do it,
It's easy to spoil your kids if you have a lot of money. If you
exactly.
don't, but there are a lot of people who don't have much money and they still spoil their kids.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
It could go both ways.
But having young kids, just take advantage of, well, I'm not a father, but
yeah.
take advantage of when you have young kids because they look at you as a superhero.
Exactly.
So,
I think that's the most important time to be present, right? It's like baby to 10, 13 years old. Because after that, like if you have good values as a father and you are confident and you are proud of who you are and everything that you've been through, you're going to be able to instill, again, consciously or subconsciously, you're going to be able to instill everything in them that is within you.
You can get away with do as I say, not as I do when they're older.
Yes.
But for young kids, they don't understand.
They never will.
All they do is just mimic what the people they look up to are doing.
It's the environment.
And that's you.
So. It's the environment, yeah.
So what's the first step for someone who wants to make a lot of money coming out of high school?
It's a great question. I don't think there's a clear-cut path, and I think it really comes down to what you enjoy. I do believe to a degree that doing something that you thoroughly enjoy will make you happy. Granted, there's a bunch of ways around that, right? If what makes you happy is sitting on the couch on a Monday and doing nothing because you have a bunch of money in your account, then yeah, you probably need to do work that's not going to make you happy in order to get to that point. But if you are super determined to be a engineer because you love working through problems or you love working through this or working through that, right? I think getting an idea of what kind of field you want to go in is the most important thing. And I would always recommend not going to college if you don't know what you want to do.
Right. At least right away.
At least right away.
Come
like
on.
That's the stupidest thing that this society has taught younger kids is in colleges will obviously they're trying to make money. But if I called the college and said I'm a graduating senior and I have no idea what I want to do, they're going to say, oh my God, well, we have so many great courses for you that are undecided. Like you can go into college undecided. And it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I know 10 plus realtors that went to a 4-year school. You need to go to school for 40 hours to be a real estate agent and pass a test. It's the easiest thing in the world. The test is hard, but you take it 2-3 times, you just pay $50 every time you take it. And it's mind-boggling to me that someone would spend 100, 150, hundreds of thousands of dollars on school to then go into a field that doesn't need a degree. That's just, it's absurd to me. So, I mean, my path was super weird and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I came out of high school having no idea what I wanted to do. I I was going to go to University of Hawaii. I was looking at all these far places because I wanted to leave. My dad passed away, and then I was like, oh my God, I probably can't go to Hawaii. This is too much responsibility, too many weird things going on. Let me just like chill for a year and maybe I'll commute to college. So I commuted to SNU in Salem, still paid $12,000 a year out of my pocket. But after that first year, had great grades, but it was like high school 2.0, English 101, history 101. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, this was the first time I saw money come out of my account to learn this stuff. I had a 4.0 GPA, but it was the stupidest things in the world that I was learning. So I was like, I'm not going to do this again. So I took a break and I said, what can I do? And from that point, one of my best friend's father, he owned a home nursing company. And he told me, he was like, hey, Joe, if you wanted to become, LPN or something for me, I'd give you $100,000 a year. So I was like, oh my God, let me do that. I'll do that. And like now I have a reason to go to school. Now I know what I can go to school for. So in the meantime, I was applying for schools. I was like, well, I might as well work at a nursing home for a time being, get used to the field. And within like 4 or 5, it might have been actually 6 months that I was at that nursing home. I was like, I don't want to do this. No shot. And at that point, I literally sat down with my boss, who was a wicked cool guy at the time. And I was like, I have no idea what I want to do. And we just started going down the list. He was like, well, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this. And we spent like a whole day of work just sitting at his desk, like thinking about ideas, what I could do. And at one point he was like, well, my sister's a real estate agent in Boston. She makes a lot of money. And I was like, how much money do you think? He's like, I don't know, probably like $300,000, $400,000. I'm like, really? I was like, all right, let me look into that. And that's literally what it was. And so one, if you have no idea what your path is coming out of high school, I'd say the biggest thing you need to do is not rush it. Don't commute. Don't do this. Don't do that. Just take a year. And whether that year is working at 3 different places at once, trying to talk to people, getting an idea of what could possibly be a good route for you. 2 is being open to absolutely everything. Like if you have no idea what your field, what you want to go into coming out of high school, you shouldn't be in your vocab book. Like whether it's doing something you absolutely hate. Even if you are the most non-religious person in the world and someone asks you to go to church, you say yes. Because you never know who you're going to meet at that church. You never know who you're going to meet going to the grocery store with your mom. Everything should be yes in that 1 year. Just to see who you can talk to, you need to be as outgoing as possible. Even if you are, naturally an internal person, you just need to try to spark conversations with people. And even nowadays, it's so easy. Go on Instagram and look at people and look at their page and be like, hey, this is a pretty cool guy. Let me message him. What do you do? And then just randomly talk to people, even if it's something you're not interested in. How long does it take you to open up someone's Instagram page and DM them, hey?
30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's no clear-cut route to, making money or being successful, but I think there's definitely steps, and unfortunately society has made it very difficult because if you don't go to school right out of high school, you're a loser, or, you're destined to be a loser, or you're going to fail or something. And it couldn't be more false. I know more people with a 4-year degree that make less than $50,000 a year than I could possibly count.
Yeah. Yeah, it is weird. They say like you got to quickly pick your major, and you're basically picking your life route there.
Exactly.
And it's supposed to be the quickest decision ever.
Yeah.
I have very strong opinions on people who, well, not the people, but the idea of working a job that you hate. I think it's horrible.
Yeah, I agree.
But like you said, if you're taking a gap year, no shouldn't be in your vocabulary.
Yeah.
When you're my age, even maybe your age, working a job that you hate might be good for you.
Yeah, 100%.
Just not for a career.
Exactly.
and
that's
actually,
the difference.
You've mentioned that on your podcast, Solid and Joe Show.
Thanks.
By the way, I was going to plug it at the end anyway, but that you don't want to do real estate sales.
Yeah.
Forever.
No.
But you're doing it now to invest in the future.
Yes.
And invest in yourself now.
100%.
So where do you see yourself going?
Buying a lot of properties, I would say, is probably going to be my number one want, is just to get to a point where if I can cash flow, meaning I'm paying off my mortgages and getting money back after paying the mortgages off, if I can cash flow $10,000 from say 5, 6, however many properties, $10,000 a month, that would be really cool. Granted, that's not going to supplement my life. Like I still need to sell real estate at that point, or I need to do something where I can also make more money than that $120,000 a year. But I think that's the goal where I'm at right now, is if I can get to $10,000 a month in cash flow from however many properties it's going to take, at that point, then I can assess and say, okay, where should I go from here? Whether it's just buying more properties and trying to get it to $20,000 a month, or whether it's saying, hey, I can actually take a lot of my, I don't have to actually cold call people. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. I can just kind of sit back and let people reach out to me who need to sell or buy. Cool. Yeah, I don't. It's interesting. Even me right now, I don't know. I don't know what the next 10 years looks like. The only thing I'm focused on is just getting enough properties where I can cash flow $10,000 a month, and from that point, I'll assess on, because that's definitely not the end all be all goal. I think a lot of my long-term goals are all family oriented. I don't have career-wise. I'm still kind of in that. I'll go whichever way I want. I mean, I could continue selling real estate if I'm older and I'm fine with it. Cool. I personally right now, I don't see myself wanting to do that. Maybe that changes. I don't know. But yeah.
It's kind of dumb to make plans.
Exactly.
Especially with that, because you don't even know. Like you said, like yourself, when you met Courtney, it's very different. Even me last year was significantly different from how I am now. So it's very difficult to make life plans based on that.
Exactly.
You just don't know what you're going to want to do. You don't know what you're going to...
I could meet someone tomorrow. I could end up just meeting Johnny at the bar and being like, hey, dude, let's start a crazy flipping business or do something that's just so absurd. And I think I honestly, not that I like try to manifest it, but like I think that's probably what will somewhat happen. I think it would be real estate related, but whether it's just building something up or building a flipping business, building a wholesale business, building whatever, something real estate oriented is what I would imagine. But by no means is that what I like expect nor exactly want. But I think it's just a free flowing. I'm all right with where I'm at right now. I want to do better. I want to make more money. I want to buy more properties and see where that takes me.
How do you think people find their passions?
It's a great question. I don't know. I wish I had a clear answer to that. I don't think real estate was ever, when I was in high school, I never thought real estate was going to be my passion whatsoever. Not that selling real estate's my passion, but I think investing in real estate is really cool. Like I look at it as if you hit the lottery tomorrow and won $350 million after taxes, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
That's what your passion is, whatever it is, right?
It's
and
true.
Like I thought about it for a long time, and I think to myself, I'm like, dude, would I even buy real estate? Because it's like I wouldn't need cash flow from real estate if I had $350 million in my bank account. Like I'm good, my kids are good, this is good. But then I got there and I was like, I still think I would probably buy real estate literally just for fun. Like I would just do it and just build like a crazy big portfolio just for fun. Like I think that's what's fun to me. And like I got into real estate because my boss at a nursing home said his sister made a lot of money selling real estate, and that's how I got it. So if you don't have a clear-cut passion coming out of high school, again, no should not be in your vocab book.
You can build passions.
You can build passions, 100%. My passion for real estate was not there whatsoever. Even in my first year when I was selling real estate, I sold one house. It's like, this definitely is my passion. Like, this sucks, And it just got to a point where it grew and it grew and it grew, and I was like, hey, I'm going to buy an investment property, and wow, that's pretty cool. Flipped a house, and like the investment side of real estate is very intriguing to me.
Do you ever find yourself anxious that you're not going to live up to the expectations set by yourself?
At a younger age, I definitely did. So, and that kind of circles back to the conversation of like when you're young, like you're thinking about making money, And so like I always had like a notion in my head that I was going to be this rich guy and I was going to make a bunch of money, not obviously not knowing anything about life, but just being like, I'm going to make a bunch of money. I'm going to be a successful, rich dude. And yeah, I think at that point, because everything is so unclear, I did definitely feel like some sort of anxiousness, saying like, where is that going to come from? How am I going to be successful? How am I going to make money? Where now don't get me wrong. Every single day I wake up, I look at my bank account and I say, I'm an idiot. I need to have more money. And but that's not really anxiousness. It's more like excitement for like, I need to work harder, or I need to make more relationships. I need to sell more houses. I need more money. I need more properties. Right. Again, I don't have much anxiousness about that because I know what is needed. Right. Like if I want to buy more properties, I need more money. If I need more money, I need to sell more houses. That's the equation. So like there's nothing that makes me anxious about that. It's more of just like getting it done, making more money, buying more properties, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's definitely, if you don't have a clear route, I could definitely imagine anyone feeling anxious about it because you're like, okay, you know, I have this expectation for myself. How am I going to get there? I don't know. Yeah. Where if I have an expectation for myself, $10,000 cash flow a month, I'm like, okay, I just need to buy more properties. If I just need to buy more properties, I just need to make more money. If I need to make more money, I just need to sell more houses. Yeah. So it kind of takes off the anxiousness.
Yeah. I don't know. I definitely struggle with that.
Yeah.
I have a tough time with being anxious about.
Yeah. I don't like, I don't, maybe when I wake up in the morning and I look at my bank account and I tell myself I'm an idiot, I need more money. Maybe I mistake that feeling for anxiousness or vice versa. Maybe you look at that as anxiousness, but really it's just
drive.
It's drive or just clear vision of what you want.
Yeah, a mouse will move a lot faster if there's a cat behind it than if there's a piece of cheese in front of it.
Exactly. So. That's a great saying. Yes.
And it's true for humans too.
Yeah.
It's often negative things that you don't want to become are better motivators than things that you do want to become.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah. And I think that's probably my clearest vision of like my why, of my, you know, family oriented goals, you could say, is that's a great point, because I look at that, like my family oriented goals, and I am way, way more confident in that, and who I will be as a father and who I will be as a husband, way more confident in that than I am like, I'm going to have $10 million in my bank account at one point. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that is because I'm scared of not being like my family growing up, or being like my dad who fell into, you know, alcoholism or something like that, where that is like, I know from the bottom of my heart that would never happen to me. I would never make that mistake. I would never put my family in harm's way like that. But it's funny you say that with the cheese thing, because that's like, it's hitting me now, because it's, yeah. And again, not that I'm not confident in me being successful or having whatever $10 million in my bank account at one point, or whatever the number is, but definitely I would agree with that heavily, that, you know, whatever, what was that saying? What'd you say? The cheese.
A mouse.
Yes.
A mouse will run quicker from a cat than it does towards a piece of cheese.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not original to me though, so I can't take.
But still,
credit,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
like that.
We both have that point of view about, I'm more confident about being a good father than I am about having a ton of money.
Yeah.
But it's probably a different reason for you. I think you may be mistaking that. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But at least for me, what I see it as is, like you said, you have clear-cut family plans, or I guess not clear-cut, but you have these overall family plans, so the route to get there is more clear than it is to a higher bank account.
True.
So it might be a lot more calming thinking about the route it's going to take to become a good father. Like, it seems more accessible and more easy than having $10 million in your bank account. And I could be wrong, because I'm sure not wanting to be like someone is definitely a big motivator, but huge. I don't really have that much in my life. I've grown up very, very privileged in a great place. Yeah, fortunate. Very fortunate. So I don't really have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All I have is positive motivators.
Yeah. Well, that's just as important too, right? Like
it is important.
A positive motivator is you could say is just as equal as a bad motivator.
Do you think a bad motivator can become a negative thing?
Absolutely. It does. say, 85% of the time, I'd say a bad motivator negatively affects the person. I'd say, right? If you have a alcoholic family or alcoholic dad, it's probably, on average, if you were to average it out, I'd bet more than 50% of those people come from an alcoholic dad, mom, whatever, might fall into that trap.
Yeah. What was it? It was sort of the same thing, talking about how the negative motivators, what you don't want to become, it can be a good thing. Like, it can push you to success.
Yes.
But do you think even then is that a negative thing? Even if it's pushing you in the right direction, if used for too long, a toxic
I see where you're going.
background can be a negative thing.
It's
like, so becoming successful because you want to have a lot of money and help people with that money versus wanting to be rich because everyone, when you were younger, bullied you and said you're going to be nothing.
I don't think that's bad regardless.
You don't think so?
I think it can be. Personally, I don't. But the great thing about that is no one else determines that besides you, whether that's a good or bad thing, right? Like, if I got bullied my entire life and was called a loser because I grew up in a very poor family or whatever, and that's what motivated me to become a multi-billionaire or something, right? I probably could at one point look at it and say, wow, like, this is out of the wrong place or whatever. But at the same time, I could look at it and be like, gotcha.
Yeah.
Got to where I wanted to be. And it's how that person's journey, it's their own mental place that determines that, whether it's good or bad for them. And there's no one else that can say that's good or bad for them. I'm sure there's millions of people that were in that same situation, right? Where got bullied, poor family, whatever, and came out of it. And I'm sure one person would be like, yep, I'm the happiest guy I could possibly be right now. And that motivation was the best thing. And me getting bullied younger was the best thing that could ever happen to me. And I'm sure you could come across a guy in a very similar situation who could say that was probably the worst thing that could have happened to me. And I'm not even happy right now because I never resolved any of those issues throughout the journey.
Yeah, the hardships we go through, they're not even really just the hardships we go through. They're more like us. It shapes us.
It's your own journey,
It's not even really like, it's not even external things that shape us. It's just internal.
Yeah.
It's our life.
It's how you perceive the external things that internally make you the person you are.
Yeah. I think, the negative motivation to become good is definitely a positive thing. I
agree.
If it goes too far and you're 20 years down the line, you're still working 80 hours a week just to prove people wrong.
Yeah.
At that point, you're just hurting yourself.
I agree.
And holding a grudge, I've said this before, holding a grudge is like drinking poison and hoping it hurts the other guy.
Yeah.
It's like you're just hurting yourself. The other guy doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's living his life.
Exactly.
Do you think your dad passed away
18. I was 18.
Right out of high school? Just after you graduated?
A month after I graduated. Yeah.
Do you think that motivated you?
It didn't motivate me at all, actually. It definitely, but on that same conversation, that I look back at that, if that never happened, I don't know. I wasn't a well-developed person. Granted, I was 18 years old. I imagine a lot of 18-year-olds aren't super well-developed and mentally wise. But I'm sure some are. And I was definitely not. Before my dad passed away, I was in a very weird mental spot. After he passed away, I was in a very bad mental spot. But that journey of 2-3 years after he passed away of just being, whether you want to call it depressed or whatever, just down on yourself, internalizing everything, not externally speaking. But that I look back on, there's nothing that could happen in my entire life that will ever get me to that point of where I was mentally. And I look at that as an unbelievably good thing, right? Like that journey shaped me into something that set a new floor, if that makes sense. There's nothing in this world that would let me, if before I was down here, after my floor is here. This is the foundation now. There's nothing that is getting me lower than that point. And yeah, so I think the moral of what I'm trying to say is bad things well, one, bad things are going to happen, just life. Two, bad things need to happen in order for you to become who you need to become.
Right.
Right. I was not, I couldn't, I can't even explain who I was back then because it was completely different. I wasn't who I was destined to be. I wasn't who I wanted to be even at that age. And unfortunately, something really bad had to happen in order for me to grow into the person that I needed to be. And it wasn't, oh, that happened, I'm a new person now. It was a 2-3 year, extremely long, terrible part of my life. But looking back on that, there's nothing I would change along that entire process.
What brought you out of that depression? If you want to call it depression.
Yeah, I don't like calling it depression, but just a terrible place.
Yeah, of course you're going to be in a horrible place after.
Yeah. I think I got sick of it. I think I got sick of playing like when you wake up and you're just like numb, right? Like you're numb to all emotions. You're numb to something great could happen and you're like, meh. Something terrible could happen. You're like, meh. You're just middle flatlined on everything for that long. I think there's only a number of things that can happen. You either give up or you just say, I'm done with this. Why am I living my life like this? And fortunately, it was the latter for me. And I just, for whatever reason, must have gotten sick of it. And I also think, and again, this is interesting. I'm being a little vulnerable here, but I think it's interesting. I think it really cleared when I started getting successful in real estate. Really cleared. Because I think it was my father passing away, me having no idea what I was going to do, me not being in college when all my friends were in college, me picking up poop at a nursing home, getting $12 an hour, being like, what am I doing right now? I think it was a mix between my dad passing away and also me having no path, no clear path, no idea of how to be what I want to be.
Nothing to show for yourself.
Nothing to show for myself. And so I think both of those really brought me down. And as soon as I think mentally I went through a lot and built a lot of resilience, probably subconsciously, because even at that point, 2 years after, I was definitely still weak. But I think subconsciously my mind started learning, picking up things that I was doing, saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to think like this anymore. But as soon as I started getting somewhat of a success in real estate, it almost like evaporated. It's interesting.
It is. I was going to, because I kind of assumed like after that, it might have pushed you to become a hard worker. You were already a hard worker before, you're saying? Or
No, I was the least hard worker before and after, to be honest. I was in high school, I was the laziest person you'd ever meet. Afterwards, after my dad passed away, I was the laziest person. It probably got worse. I was even more lazy. That nursing home job, I was so lazy. I did a quarter of what I was supposed to do. There were rooms that just smelled bad, so I just wouldn't clean them or whatever it may be. Yeah, just one. I'm like a germaphobe, regardless. So that was not the job for me. But I was very lazy. Even in real estate, my first few years, I was really lazy. I would even say now I'm not lazy, but I'm very particular on the work that I want to do. Because my happiness comes from freedom of decision, freedom of time, And so if I genuinely really don't want to do something that I don't think adds value to me, I probably will delegate it or not do it, right? And I'm smart enough, I think I'm smart enough now to a point where just because I don't want to do something doesn't mean I'm not going to do it, right? But if I see something that I don't want to do, but it gets me to the other end of something that I want, obviously I'm going to do it, right? Or I don't want to do something, but I know doing that something will teach me or, subconsciously, consciously, whatever it may be, help me in the future, I'll do it. But if it's genuinely something that's just, I feel a waste of my time, I won't do it. So I wouldn't call that laziness now, but.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea of what I have. Like, you got to just do something that you love. You're not going to do a great job at something that you hate anyway.
Exactly.
So you're going to do a much better job at something that you love to do.
Yep.
And, there might be a job or there might not be a job that you really love doing.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people are in that boat.
Yeah, I mean, I like doing what I'm doing, and I'm very glad I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Super glad. Even if I didn't like it, I would still be doing it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I'm doing this podcast, because this is my fun time. It's something that I can build on, that's productive, that's positive for people, hopefully positive for people, that hopefully will reach plenty of people, that I can actually build, show for myself in a few years' time, hopefully. Mm-hmm. And I actually enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't like the editing and stuff like that, but the conversations that I have are just much, like, super worth it compared to I don't know. This part is like a tenth of the work.
I think that speaks,
but it's fun.
Yeah, agreed. I think that speaks volume to the people who are, and whether you want to say maybe it is their career path that they just don't like, or maybe it's just a middle ground of like, hey, I'm waiting to do this, but I'm doing something I don't want to do. I think that speaks volume to those people saying that, like, okay, if you're working somewhere for 6-8 hours a day, you still have 5-6 hours of your day that you can do whatever the heck you want with. So if that is going home, sitting down and playing Fortnite, cool. But don't complain to me that you're not happy with where you're working, because you could take that 4, 5, 6 hours and make a podcast and feel fulfilled, or do whatever would make you happy, right? And you do that long enough, you probably can turn that something that makes you happy into a business or into a something.
A lot of the time, especially now with social media.
That's so easy.
People lift and they
and make money off of it. Yes.
They make more money than I probably ever will doing that.
Just from working out, something they love doing.
Yeah.
And so it's funny. It is funny. I think, I mean, it's weird. I mean, I'm kind of in the middle of that process right now where, like, I have never enjoyed social media, like myself posting on social media and stuff like that. I don't know. I wish I could give a better description of why I don't love it. I think I see people on social media and I'm like, ugh. Like, like I just wouldn't, like, I wouldn't post that, or I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I think I wouldn't want people to perceive me like that. And I think whether that's an insecurity or just a stupid thought, I'm starting to post, and it's really just posting stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, we got roasted for our first podcast.
I heard.
Yeah, we got roasted. And like, I think that was something that needed to happen to me because, one, it was our first episode, right? So it's like, oh my God. But I think that was the best thing that could have happened to me, because it kind of just completely washed away my fear of, like, what are people going to think? I'm posting more, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I really don't care. Like, I just want more business for my Instagram. So
yeah, dude, if you don't like it, click that unfollow.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care.
So, yeah, I mean, it really is just start posting, start doing whatever. I mean, I don't know if you follow Gary Vee at all, but like, I love Gary Vee, and that's all he preaches. It's like, if you want to do something, don't complain that it's not working. If you're doing like one post a week, just not going to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee that you're going to be successful if you're consistent, but I can guarantee that if you're not consistent, you're not going to be successful.
Yes.
And I'm speaking to myself here, because I'm not very consistent. I'm trying to, like, every week would be ideal.
Yeah.
Twice a week would be ideal, but it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But it's still no excuse. I have no excuse.
Yeah. No, I definitely don't I think reflection is one of the biggest things someone can do to grow and to realize, right? And like, when I say reflection, I'm talking about, like, I don't want to sound spiritual, but like just outside of your body, outside of your mind, reflecting on a situation and saying, okay, me personally, I view it this way because my emotions are attached to it and this is attached to it. But if I completely backed away from this and reflected, how would I view this? Right. And so the fact that you're reflecting on you feeling not consistent is good. That's the starting point, right? Like, you don't get more consistent by just nothing. You get more consistent by feeling like you're not consistent. I think it's also tougher for you, again, because you need to find a bunch of guests. It's like, how many people?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
still no
but
excuse.
You can always, no, I agree. You can always come up with a number of different things. So
yeah. I mean, I've talked to you, and I can count on my hands the amount of times I've talked to you, but I just sent you a message, and I can do that to definitely a lot more people.
Yeah,
I really love it. The podcast is great.
Yeah.
If I don't ever make any money from it, it's been worth it for me.
I agree.
It's weird hearing yourself talk. I never liked hearing myself talk on videos, and I think most people don't.
Mm-hmm.
But something about just hearing yourself talk about subjects and being like, that doesn't sound right. Or even talking to someone, even if you don't have cameras in front of you, talking to someone about what you think, your beliefs, that strengthens your beliefs or changes them, which are all positive things. So
couldn't agree more.
I think I would recommend everyone, even if you don't want to record it and upload it, just at least like have someone that you can talk to once a week, once a month. Doesn't matter. You need to talk to someone about stuff that's like bigger than small
your day-to-day life.
Yeah, bigger than the NFL.
Exactly.
Yeah, talk about real stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think a podcast is, and I never thought of myself enjoying podcasts because I think everyone, like you said, I don't think people enjoy hearing themselves talk. And I think that's a huge hurdle to jump because once you get past that, it's like you hit me up to do a podcast and I was like, honestly, yeah. Like, cool.
It's fun.
I'll do a podcast.
I love
It's
it.
fun. Like, I think it's fun now, right? Like the first one that I did with Johnny and Murph, I was like so nervous. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say? You know? And after that, then it was me doing my own. Even that first one, I was like, oh my God. Even the second one, I'm like, oh my God. But now, like after that second one, I got to a point where I was like, wow, I actually feel like I sounded moderately decent on the second one compared to the first one.
Yeah,
and
that'll keep happening too.
Exactly,
so
and it's
very satisfying.
Yeah, exactly, and like that the feeling you get after hearing yourself talk and actually enjoying it is crazy. Like, and I'm not saying I'm enjoying myself talking, but like being like, wow, that was a good point I brought up, and like I think a lot of the stuff, like a lot of this is just free talking, you know. So if you can, it builds your it built your vocab, but it also builds your your grammar, how you speak, and how you present yourself.
Your
right?
knowledge,
if I can,
depending on who you're talking to.
Yes, 100%. But I think one of the most unthought of values in today's society is being a good speaker. And I'm not saying standing on a podium and talking to 1,000 people, but just being a good speaker to your friend, being a good speaker to your mom, being a good speaker to the random guy walking down the street, right? Because again, you just never know what this person's going to bring to your life. You know, if I'm able to work on my speaking through podcasts and get better at just coming up with thoughts, out of the blue or whatever, being able to conversate very well, that's going to take you places in life that you wouldn't have gotten if you were scared to speak because you're like, I don't want to sound like an idiot,
Yeah, that was a big hurdle for me to jump over for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you start a podcast?
I actually, the main goal of me starting the podcast was literally just so I could post on social media and build quote unquote brand on social media. But the more I get into it, I actually really enjoy podcasts. Like I really do. And like, I want to bring on guests. I want to bring on, and like that same type of topics, like my friend Sala, who I'm doing the podcast with, we would have those types of conversations, whether there's cameras in front of us or not. Like whether it's going to the bar or just sitting down, doing whatever, we would have those same types of knowledgeable business, money conversations. And for a long time now, we were like, we should do a podcast. Like we always talk about it. And then one day, not that long ago, we were like, let's just do it. Like, let's actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we did it. And I'm glad we did because one, I'm moderately building a brand on social media. I'm definitely not some social media wizard, so give me a little bit here.
Me too, and I'm a year into it. So.
Yeah. So hopefully, it's all about the reels. It's all about the reels and posting them consistently. But it's also weird because it's like I don't think, and I don't want to get all social media tech here, but like I don't think if you're selling a product or you're selling something of physical value, then I think that's like you need to be posting like 5 times a day.
Right.
And like building a page outside of your own personal page to sell that product. But like for me to sit there and as a real estate agent post 5 times a day, people are just gonna be like, dude, chill out.
Dude, go get a job.
Yeah, go get do something else.
Yeah.
So it's a weird balance between, how many posts do I do a week? What kind of posts? I can't just only post reels because then you're gonna look at my page and be like, this guy just has 100 reels here. It just doesn't look right. So it's like integrating, looking the part, and also saying the part, saying the right things, and doing everything else. So that's definitely what my goal is for the podcast.
Originally, one of the goals of my podcast was to teach people, because I feel like I have a lot of knowledge, and not talking myself up, because this is stuff I learned from other people, not me, not my life experiences.
Yeah.
But I've heard a lot from a lot of smart people, so I thought I could learn from them. But it's also a good accountability.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, accountability for anything.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
People can tell if I'm getting a little chubbier.
Yeah,
they can see everything.
No, that's true.
If I don't walk the talk, then I have no right to be. Well, I think anyone has the right to start speaking up here.
Yeah.
But if you're not in the right direction, if you're not going in the right direction, then likely you're leading other people to the wrong direction.
Exactly.
So I want to lead these people to a good direction. I want to give them knowledge, so I need to be going there too.
I think the knowledge part of it is super cool too, right? Like whether you're talking about real estate, whether you're talking about investing, whether you're talking about life, marriage, whatever it may be, I think that is a super cool way to I'm trying to think. It's just some random Joe Schmo that we might not know, but kind of know of, right? What other way you're going to get to sit down and talk to him deeply than a nice podcast? Mm-hmm. If they're a super successful dude and you're like, I'm not just going to call him and say, hey, you mind talking to me for 20 minutes so I can pick your brain? Or hey, do you want to come on my podcast? And then I get to ask those questions, get to learn that information that he's willing to give and everything else.
Generally, most people, they want people to listen to them. You get an audience to talk about your beliefs and what you feel about things, but the audience isn't right in front of you, so there's not the anxiety of the public speaking.
Exactly. I see this mosquito.
I know. What are you doing there?
I got it. Nope, I didn't. There it is.
All right. Sorry. What are your goals for 2024?
2024, my goals are to sell $15 million in real estate. So roughly, what is that? 30 houses at $500,000, which I'm not going to sell only $500,000 houses, but just on average. So I think actually a majority of my goals 2024 are literally just financial goals, and real estate sales goals. I'm definitely going to purchase another house this year. I'm going to sell $15 million in real estate. If I do sell $15 million in real estate, I will have met my money goal of what I want to have in my bank account after, I'm actually going to get married later this year.
Congrats.
So thank you. Obviously putting some money aside from that and buying a house. So not super easy year of saving money, but if I do sell $15 million in real estate, I'll be able to spend what I spent last year. I will be able to put a decent amount of money towards getting married. I will be able to buy another house and still save enough money to hit my bank account goal.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
People can find me, Joey.Pantaleo on Instagram. Probably the best way you can find me, or Joey Pantaleo on Facebook. I'm leaning towards social media now. I don't have my own website. My team has a website, and I have my bio in there. But you go to my social media page, you'll see my phone number. You can DM me if you want to see a house or whatever it may be, or even ask about investing in real estate. I know that's been a big one for people our age. Everyone wants to buy the 2-family, 3-family. It's the only way. Again, if there's one thing someone can get out of listening to this podcast, you need to buy a multifamily for your first house. I don't care if you're going to be a doctor. I don't care if you're going to be an engineer. I don't care, whatever it may be. You might hate real estate, but it'd be the stupidest thing in the world for you not to buy a multifamily for your first house.
Podcast?
Joe and Sala and Joe show.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on.
All right, man. Yeah, I appreciate it.
It's great.
Yeah.
I had a good time.
Yeah, me too, man.
Hopefully we'll do more in the future.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, guys.
All right,
brother. We'll see you back here in hopefully a week or 2 weeks.
Make it 3 days.
We're going to Tampa. I can't do that.
Oh, true.